to kindergarten for our demo. Okay? All the way back to kindergarten. Way back to kindergarten. Farther for some of us than others. Now, the colors that I had you guys buy, or that came in your kit, what can you say about the grouping?
They're all muddy.
They're all what?
Muddy.
No. What we've just been using, they were muddy, the limited palette, because they literally were earth colors. But when we start using our full range of color, what I was looking for, there are 2 yellows. You see where I'm going? Two reds. Yes. And what do you think's next?
2 blues.
2 blues. Well, I'm going to have to use these 2. All right. So what is yellow, red, and blue? What are those considered? What do you call that group? What? Primary colors. Now, so that to me begs the question, why did I have you buy 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 blues?
Because you're going to use the primary colors the most?
Well, you are going to use them the most, but they're 2 different yellows, 2 different reds, 2 different blues. Why 2 of each? Okay, why do we call them the primary colors?
You can create any color from those colors. It's the primary 3.
Okay, you can mix any other color from those 3. That works great in theory. The problem comes when you actually sit down to do it. Okay? So you've got 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues. Within each of those, there's like a warm yellow and a cool yellow. There's a warm blue and a cool blue, a warm red and a cool red. So I want to go over how these colors mix, what you would do to mix a particular color, and how you should lay these out on your palette. Okay? So theoretically, you mix yellow and blue, you get grade. Very good. You have passed on to first grade. Woo! Okay. You mix yellow and red, you get orange. Yellow and red gives you blue, and blue and red should give you purple. Okay. So hopefully that's not a revelation to anybody. But I want to show you how these colors mix and how you should go about doing it. I'm using acrylic today for the demo. You know, the practice of using acrylic and oil, they work exactly the same. Just the acrylics have a little different look to them, and then they also dry much faster. And an advantage of acrylics is that you can work directly on paper, whereas if you were to do that with oils, you would end up with it seeping into and the canvas or the paper and then causing it to rot. Okay, so don't want that to happen. Okay, after our last couple limited palette paintings, this looks nice, doesn't it? A little bit tasty. So, what can you tell me about how I've laid my colors out on the palette?
You've gone from lightest to darkest?
Well, that is just a happy coincidence. It does go from light to dark, basically. What else does it do? Which colors are warm?
The left side, or.
This
yeah.
side, this side, cool colors, so it's going from warm to cool. If I'd spread these out a little bit more and come all the way around, what would I have made?
Color wheel.
A color wheel. You got one right behind you. You have all the answers right there. Oh, very good. Perhaps you will one day be on Wheel of Fortune. All right. See, there we go. My wife watches that every night and it just kills me. I swear that show can't last much longer because people can't spell.
You still have that?
What's that?
I didn't know they still made it.
They do still make it.
My dad watches it every
Well,
single night.
that was the thing. Her father watched it every night, and now that he's gone, she feels like she has to keep the tradition going. So, yeah, okay, whatever. I know she doesn't care for some of the things I watch, so we're even there. All right, so the reason you've got two of each here is that you can't buy perfect primary yellow, perfect primary red, perfect primary blue. So if you're wanting just a nice neutral yellow, you could, do a little mix of the two of them and get your more or less primary yellow. Can you guys see that okay? I don't think I'll be drinking that. It's always dangerous to have your drinks near your water. So I always go with something with a lid or a straw. Because I have gotten a jar of turpentine to this point before. And thank God it smelled. Okay? So I'm going to mix the two reds and see what we come up with. One of those is really orange looking, the other is really purple looking. But I mix those two together, I get a pretty good red. Hopefully this is all review for everybody, but if it's not, that's okay. If it is review, you can say, oh man, I got this down, I'm ready to go. Mix the two blues together, and I get a nice blue. So from these three, in theory, you should be able to mix everything. Now, we put them in the circle so that we can work in, what do we get when we mix two primary colors? A what color?
Secondary.
Secondary colors. What do we get when we mix a primary and an adjacent secondary? Tertiary. Let's put that away. Okay, so when it comes to mixing these secondary colors, if I'm going to mix a nice green, what do I want to mix? Which yellow do I want to use to make a nice green? Say louder. Depends on what kind you want, yeah. But if I want to mix a green that's close to Jay's jacket, which yellow do I use? Which one?
Canary.
Well, canary. I don't know what color canaries are, do you?
I would go with the warmer of yellows.
Would you go with this one? How many of you go with this one?
Yes,
That one, okay. Okay.
I feel like it's
Which blue do I use?
hard to lighter.
This one? How many of you say this one? How many of you say this one? How many you got? So, if I mix my canary yellow with the phthalo or the Prussian, look at the green I get. Okay? So that's using this yellow. See how cool that is compared to our primary that we mixed? Can you guys see this okay? If you need to stand, do that so you can take it all in. You don't want to miss a second of this brilliant color lecture. And you see the yellow deep over on this side. There we go. So each of our colors tends slightly towards another. So our cobalt or our ultramarine goes slightly toward violet. While our phthalo or our Prussian blue goes slightly toward green. Don't get hung up on whether it's light or dark. That's not what's important, okay? What's important is what direction the color moves in. So like this particular red that I've got here, you can see why that really is moving towards purple there, right? Okay? Whereas the other red is just as orange as it can be. So in mixing our secondary colors, when you're mixing a secondary color and you want it to be bright, you want to use the colors that are already moving in that direction. Now, if any of you have ever looked in my office, you will immediately draw the conclusion that I am not the world's neatest or most organized person. But one thing that I think is really important to keep organized is your palette. I lay my palette out like this, in this direction, every time in the same way. And the reason I do that, a couple things. You see here, get a really nice orange by using the yellow deep and the red light. And when it comes to making the violet, I'm going to use the ultramarine. I've run out of places to mix. And the magenta. Ooh, that's a nice purple. Okay, so you see, I get my nice secondary colors by using the color that's closest to the one I want to mix. So I use the yellow deep and the red light to mix this nice orange. I used the magenta and the cobalt or ultramarine to make this nice violet. And then I used the Prussian or phthalo and the yellow light to make that nice green. Now, if I want to make a duller green, I can use the wrong two colors, the wrong yellow and the wrong blue. So like if I go, okay, I'm going to use my cobalt and my yellow deep, look at the difference in those greens. Right? You see how much duller that is? Now why is that a little dull? It's still yellow and blue. Think on that for a minute. I'm going to use the wrong red. Which am I making here? The wrong red and the wrong yellow. Oh, that's the right red though. Sorry. Here, I'll sign it. So I'm going to make orange, and I'm using my wrong red and my wrong yellow. This is not a terrible orange, but when you look at the orange compared to the first orange I made, how does it differ?
It loses vibrance.
Loses vibrance. Okay, so I got that nice purple down here by using the magenta and the cobalt. Now I'm going to try it with the phthalo and the red light. Wow, look at that.
Is it black?
It's not black, but it's not vibrant at all, is it? So you see, when I use the wrong yellow and the wrong blue, I get a dirty green. When I use the wrong yellow and the wrong orange, I get a dirty orange. Same for the violet. Now, that can work really nicely. For instance, this green that I used is a really nice green for the landscape, right? Most people do landscapes initially and they look like they're plugged in, you know, they're neon. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of the neutral in there. Now, why did those colors turn out dirty? It's still 10 after 7. Why did those colors turn out dirty? And it has to do with the color wheel and the way these things are arranged. Any guesses? Why do we arrange them in a circle like this?
Because they meet up.
Well, they meet up, they join around, but why a circle? Why not a pyramid? Excuse me? Well, they do loop. We do them in a circle so that we can see the colors that are directly across from them. So, what's directly across from yellow? Purple. What are yellow and purple? What do we call those two together?
Complementary colors.
Complementary colors. Okay? Now, what does that mean? The two colors are complementary. You've heard it a million times. Now we need to know why we care. They look good next to each other. That is one thing. If you want to make your orange pop, surround it with blue.
But if you mix them together, they turn into like a muddy brown.
Okay, let's throw the word brown out of our vocabulary. Take an oath. I will never say brown again. What's that?
I will never say brown again.
Excellent. You just got an A. Boom. Okay. So, brown is such a catch-all. What color is the desk up there? What color are the doors? What color is this wood behind it? What color is the table? Now, you could almost say, what color is my tea? All of it's brown, right? But do they look alike? What color is this table? Yellow. Okay? The desk up there is like kind of maybe a dirty orange. If you'll not let yourself use the word brown and always look for the root color to something, you'll do much better at mixing them. But if you mix two complements that are directly across from one another on a wheel, the goal is not to get a brown, but to get a shade of gray. So I've taken the blue, I'm taking my red light and a little bit of the yellow deep. Need more blue. And when I draw that color out, blue and orange give us a nice shade of gray. Okay? We're leaving brown away. So, blue and orange give us a gray. Let's see what happens when I try mixing some red with our green. Now I mix the red and green. This still is greenish, but it's really dull. So if I go with some more of my reds and mix them in there, here we go. As I draw that color out, it's approaching right here, okay? And let me try it with the yellow. And violet. And you see, mixing the yellow and the violet gives you a really good gray. Now, if you look at these three together, they're not the same gray, are they? But they're all in that neighborhood. And if you mix gray, if you're doing a painting and you've got lots of color in it, and you mix gray by using black and white, it will stand out like the sorest thumb ever. Okay? If you mix it by using your complements, it will sit in there with the other colors and look like it belongs. Now, in addition to using complements to make gray, why else might you use complements? Every time you decide you want to use blue in a painting, you want a nice bright blue like this. Every time? Yes, no. No. So if I just take a little bit of orange and mix it in there with the blue, yeah, it gets a little darker, but what else does it get? Excuse me? Not brighter. What?
More gray.
More gray or duller, okay? So what I've shown you in terms of mixing the two primaries and which primary to use to mix a secondary color holds true for whether you want to make things brighter. The reason that, say right here, we got a duller green, we used our ultramarine and we used our yellow deep. The yellow deep shades toward what color?
Orange.
Orange. The ultramarine shades toward what color? Violet. Both, what do violet and orange have in common? They both contain what color? Red. And what is red's relationship to green?
Complementary.
It's a complementary color. That's why you end up with a duller green when you mix the yellow deep and the ultramarine. Same thing when you're mixing violet. If you use the phthalo blue or Prussian blue and the red light, both those have a little bit of yellow in them. And so you're going to end up with this dark, dull purple. Same thing when you're mixing orange, right here. You're using the magenta, which has a little blue in it, and you're using the yellow light, which also shades towards blue, and blue and orange are complements, so you end up with a duller color there. You guys understand that? Okay, so when you go out to paint, and when you're setting your palette up, I want you to set it up the same way every time and put the colors in the same place every time. So, what I would do, your yellow light, then your yellow deep, that one got a little messy, your red light, your crimson, then your ultramarine, and then lastly, your Prussian or your phthalo. This is the way I want you to put your colors out across the top of your palette. You can put white here. What I often do is put white at this end and then put white at this end. That way, if I'm mixing something with the yellows or the reds, the white with it, I'm drawing from this stack. If I'm mixing something with the blues, I'm drawing from this side, and they don't get it contaminated so much, okay? This keeps the color wheel right here, if you lay them out this way. How many of you have done what's called a blind contour drawing? Okay, yes, yes, yes. What is it?
Not fun.
Not fun, okay. What else is it? Challenging? What else? Well, just, okay, a few of you have not done a blind contour drawing before? So, describe it.
Blind contour drawing is when you're looking at an object, but you're not looking at the things that you're drawing, and you're basing it off of what
Wait a
you
minute. You're looking at what you're drawing. I'm doing a portrait of Hannah. I'm only going to look at her. What am I not looking at, Caleb?
your paper or
My canvas or my paper. It's over here. And I'm looking at her, and I'm coming down, and here's the mask, and I come down, and I keep doing that. I never take my pencil or my paintbrush off the page. And then you look over it and go, oh my! That's a mess, or that looks just like her.
That's a
Okay?
mess.
It's more often than not, yeah, it looks like a mess. I was out painting a landscape one day, and you know, I had all my colors laid out like this, and I was really intently studying what I was painting, and I didn't realize it at the time, but you know, I knew where all the colors were on my palette. And I was looking down, and I was mixing color without looking at the palette. I just kept looking at what I was painting out in the landscape. I was doing a blind landscape painting. And somebody came up and said, oh, that looks cool, and broke my concentration. And I looked over and looked at my painting, and I was shocked, because my painting was doing what I wanted it to do, but I had not been looking at it. Now, if I didn't have my palette organized like this, would that have ever happened?
Probably not.
Probably not. And you know what? I've continued to do that. It hasn't happened again. And we're going on 35 years later. But it was so cool, that one moment. And while we're talking about painting in the landscape, let me give you just one more lesson on that front. Somebody comes up and talks to you. People are drawn like magnets when they see somebody outside painting. They want to go up and see what you're doing. Never make eye contact. Because once you make eye contact with them, they're there forever. Okay? You just keep working. They may say, that looks nice. You go, oh, thanks. And you just keep working. Don't worry about being rude. You are serving a higher calling. Okay? How do you like that? So don't worry about being rude. Just concentrate on your work. If it happens, that's good. If it happens here on campus, you know, and it's one of your buddies, say, look, I'm in class right now. I got to work. Just concentrate on what you're doing. Don't make eye contact, and you'll be able to keep working on your training. So, anybody have any questions about color and color mixing and the colors that you guys have on your palettes? Jay?
What is the version on the 6th one?
This one?
Yes.
That's cadmium red light.
Okay,
This is Prussian or phthalo blue.
and
Yeah. Okay, they're very similar colors. The phthalo is much stronger, and that phthalo, if you start mixing it with other colors, it just takes it over. Okay, so one last thing I want to show you guys today. I don't remember if I have that color here. All right, so when you guys start to paint, and you're working on one of your canvas panels, or you're working on a canvas, what color is it?
White?
White. Does that sound natural and right? Yes, no, maybe?
I mean, I usually think of my canvas as white.
Okay, that's fair, I agree. You know, you go into the store and you buy a fresh canvas, it's gonna be white. What I want you guys to do today, when you get home or before you leave, whenever you want to, I want you to mix up, or not mix up, I want you to use your burnt sienna. Okay? And I want you to thin it out with a lot of water and just completely cover your canvas with the burnt sienna. Okay, I mean edge to edge, almost like you're going in and preparing it for a new painting, except instead of using white, you're going to use your burnt sienna, okay? Cover the whole thing with this. Now, why do you think I'm asking you to do that?
To change your perspective on the white canvas?
Change your perspective? Yeah, okay. You know, what color did I start with on my lovely color wheel?
Yellow?
Yellow. And when I put yellow on this white page, what was the darkest color?
Yellow?
Yellow, exactly. Okay? So, we're always working to try to cover up all that white. Our next painting, we're going to start with the burnt sienna background. And that way, if we decide to come in and paint something yellow, that yellow looks very different from that one, doesn't it? Okay, so your next painting, what I want you to do when you get home today, go ahead and thin out that burnt sienna, I mean really thin, and just cover the entire canvas with it, and then let that dry, and the demo that will be available on Thursday is what you're going to work on over the weekend. Next Tuesday when we meet, you'll only have one painting to bring in unless you have some that you need to catch up on. Okay? So I'm going to do a demo for you guys in my studio that you'll work on starting Thursday. Okay? Make sure that you look at demo 6 because it shows you how I got from demo 5 to what I brought in and showed you in the studio today. Okay? It's not a lesson that you have to actually do, but I want you to watch it because I think it will help you enormously. Okay? Any questions? Do you have a question or just fixing your hair? Okay. I do the same thing. All right, guys, that'll do it for today.